Hello, my favorite English language learners. It is your favorite English teacher here, Amy Joy, and in today's video, I am going to teach you 40 useful vocabulary words to talk about the economy. Currently, it is 2022 and our global economy is all over the place. When I listen to the news, I'm constantly hearing about inflation, interest rates, and the labor market, and I've been hearing so many vocabulary words that I think will be new and useful for you. In addition to this video, I have also created a free downloadable PDF that you can access in the description below, which includes lots of vocabulary activities and even a listening activity using a radio segment from NPR so that you can hear other native speakers using these words in real life. I actually would really love to review the answers to this handout in a YouTube live stream. I've never done one before, but I would really like to. So if that interests you, make sure you let me know in the comments below so we can set that up. All right, with that being said, let's get started. The first 5 vocabulary words I want to teach you are all related to jobs, and they include the labor market or the job market, unemployment rate, job growth, short-staffed, and layoffs. So let's take a look and see what these words mean. Number 1, the labor market or the job market. This is just a fancy collocation to talk about the number of jobs and workers available. To put it in a sentence, you can say, when college students graduate, they usually enter the labor market or the job market. Or currently, companies are hiring rapidly, so workers are taking advantage of this labor market by finding new jobs with higher wages. Number 2, the unemployment rate. This is the percent of the labor market who want jobs and can work, but cannot find a job. And it's important to know that a high unemployment rate is bad and a low unemployment rate is good. Now, the collocation unemployment rate is a noun, and you will often see the verbs to climb and to increase with this. So, for example, you can say, the unemployment rate climbed or increased 3% this year, which made the president look bad. In this example, the unemployment rate went up. It climbed, it increased. That means many people who wanted to work could not find a job. And number 3, job growth. This just means when more jobs are created. So for example, you can say, after the pandemic, companies began hiring again, and job growth steadily increased. While this word might be easy to understand, I do just want to highlight that it's a great collocation for you to use. Okay, and number 4, short-staffed. This is an adjective, and it means that a company does not have enough workers or staff. For example, after the pandemic, companies began hiring again, and job growth steadily increased. But many people did not want to go back to work, so some businesses have been short-staffed. Some businesses do not have enough workers, they do not have enough employees, they are short-staffed. And number 5, layoffs as a noun or to lay someone off as a phrasal verb. This refers to when a company lets you go. They take away your job, but it's not your fault. So this word is a little bit different than firing someone. To fire someone means that you did something wrong and you lost your job. But to lay someone off means you did nothing wrong, but the company, for whatever reason, they need to let you go. Maybe they cannot afford to pay you, or maybe they just don't need your role anymore. So they lay you off. So for example, while restaurants and grocery stores are short-staffed, tech companies are experiencing layoffs. Or even though I hit all my sales goals, my company still laid me off. Notice in the phrasal verb that this is separable, so the pronoun me goes in between the verb lay and the preposition off. To lay me off, to lay someone off. Okay, let's move on to section number 2, which will discuss wages and costs. In this section, we will cover 10 words. We have wages, cost of living, purchasing power, supply, demand, budget, expenses and expenditures, revenue, deficit, and surplus. Let's look at number 1. Wages are fixed regular payments or just how much money workers earn. For example, in order to attract workers, restaurants and grocery stores have increased wages. They are paying people more money. Number 2, cost of living. This means how much it costs just to live in a certain place. For example, the cost of living in California or New York City is higher than in Idaho. And a common phrase I keep hearing in the news is that wages are not keeping up with the cost of living. This means that wages are staying the same, but the cost to keep your lifestyle the same is more expensive. Moving on to number 3, the collocation purchasing power. My students love this collocation. Purchasing power just means the amount of stuff you can buy with a certain amount of money. So let's say that in 2020, milk cost $2. But in 2022, the price of milk increased to $3. Since the price is higher, I cannot afford the same thing as before. Basically, when things get more expensive, a person's purchasing power goes down. Another phrase you might hear is that the dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. So what a dollar can buy today is very different from what a dollar could buy 15 years ago. The purchasing power of the dollar has gone down. Okay, moving on to words 4 and 5, we have supply and demand. Supply is how much of something you have, and demand is like desire. It is how much people want something. And I'm sure you are familiar with the theory of supply and demand, which says that if desire or demand for a product is more than the supply or what is available, it will be more expensive. Oftentimes we see these words put together, but you can also use them separately. And moving on to number 6, we have the word budget. A budget is an estimate of how much money you have or will have, and also how much money you want to spend. We often hear it used in phrases like to go over budget or to stay under or to stay within budget. So in a sentence, we can say, we cannot afford to hire a new employee because we are already over budget. Or, let's purchase the cheaper software to stay within budget. Then we have number 7, which is expenses or expenditures. And this refers to things you have to pay for, or money going out or money being spent. In a sentence, we can say, to stay under budget, your expenses or your expenditures have to be less than your income, or the money that you make or the money you have coming in. And number 8 is the word revenue. Revenue refers to the money that a company makes after their expenses. So as I was thinking of sample sentences for this word, I actually Googled how much revenue does the iPhone produce, bring in, or generate. So notice that those verbs go along with the word revenue. You can produce revenue, bring in revenue, or generate revenue. So all of those are actually great collocations. And after I Googled this question, it told me, even though Apple has diversified its product line with the Apple Watch, the AirPods, and services, the iPhone is still responsible for 50% of Apple's revenue. So after all the costs, after all the expenses that Apple has to pay to run its business, the iPhone brings in 50% of the money that they make, or 50% of their revenue. And number 9 is the word deficit. The word deficit refers to when expenses or money going out is greater than the money coming in. To put it in a sentence, you can say, although our company is in a deficit, we need to spend more money on advertising and marketing to bring in new customers. You will also often see this word used to talk about government spending. Currently, the US has a deficit of $2.1 trillion. We are in debt by $2.1 trillion, which is a lot, but for various economic reasons, sometimes it makes sense to stay in a deficit, even though it is seen as a negative thing. And word number 10, surplus or budget surplus. This means that after your expenses, you have money left over. And in a sentence, we can say, because our company finished the year with a surplus, we all got bonuses during Christmas. And before moving on to our next set of words, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and download the free PDF that I've attached in the description below so you can keep improving your English with me. Okay, and moving on to our third category, we have words related to global or national economics. And these words include GDP, inflation, exchange rate, and interest rates. So our first one is GDP, which is an acronym or an abbreviation for gross domestic product. And it means the total value of goods and services produced by a country. To put it in a sentence, you can say, a country's GDP is important because it tells us about the health of the overall economy. Or, the United States has had the highest GDP in the world for many years. But China's GDP is catching up quickly. And next is inflation. I'm hearing this word all the time on the news lately because in 2022, we are currently experiencing very high rates of inflation. This means when the prices of goods go up and your purchasing power goes down. The verb to inflate means to get bigger, so this help explains the definition. It's just when prices get bigger. That's inflation. Some common ways to use this include wages are not keeping up with inflation, so I cannot afford what I used to. Or, due to the inflation of gas prices, many people are choosing not to drive to work. And number 3, exchange rate. This is how much one country's currency is worth compared to another. And to use it in a sentence, you can say, recently, the exchange rate from the euro to the dollar was the same for the first time in 20 years. Usually the exchange rate is about 1.3 euros to $1. So now, Americans who use the dollar have more purchasing power in Europe. They can afford more things there because the exchange rate is the same. And number 4, interest rates. This refers to the percentage of interest that the government sets to borrow money. High interest rates means you need to pay more to borrow money. And in a sentence, we can say, in 2020, interest rates were very low so that people could easily borrow money during the pandemic. But in 2022, in an effort to slow down inflation, the federal government has increased interest rates. Okay, all of the words in the rest of this video will be collocations with the word economic. You will often see the adjective economic with nouns to create collocations that sound a little bit more academic and are used frequently among native speakers. And this next section are collocations to refer to positive economic situations. So we have economic prosperity, which means economic success. Number 2, economic stability. Stability is the noun form of the adjective stable. So it means that the economy is not changing and it is not fluctuating chaotically. It is very stable or peaceful. Economic stability. And collocations 3 through 8 all refer to positive economic change, maybe going from a bad economy to a good economy. So word number 3 is economic recovery. Recovery is the noun form of the verb to recover, which means to get better. This means that your economy was bad, but it is now recovering or getting better. Economic recovery. We also have economic revival, and revival is the noun form of the verb to revive. To revive something means to bring it back to life. So an economic revival is when the economy gets better after being dead. Economic improvement. Improvement is the noun form of the verb to improve, which again means to get better. Next, we have economic boom, and to boom means to grow rapidly. So an economic boom is when the economy grows quickly. Then we have economic growth, which obviously just means when the economy grows. And then we have economic upturn. An upturn is a synonym for improvement. And in contrast, we also have a lot of collocations to talk about negative economic situations. Here I have 10 of them. Number 1, we have economic collapse. Collapse means to fall or like a failure. So it basically just refers to when a country's economy falls or collapses. Number 2, economic crisis. Number 3, economic hardship. Hardship just means difficulty. So a family could go through economic hardship, and also a country could go through economic hardship. And collocations 4 through 10 all have a very similar meaning. They all just mean that a country's economy is slowly going down, or it is stagnant or not moving. The economy is very slow. So we have number 4, economic decline. Decline just means to go down. Number 5, an economic downturn. The word downturn is the opposite of upturn, and it also means to go down or decline. 6, economic slowdown. The word slow down means exactly what you think it would. It means to slow down or stop. 7, economic slump. The word slump also refers to a sudden decrease or decline. 8, an economic depression. 9, economic recession. And 10, economic stagnation. Now, the adjective stagnant means slow or no activity. So from that adjective, we get the noun form stagnation, which just means slow. And moving on to our last category, we have collocations about changes in the economy. For example, number 1, we have economic activity. This just refers to any movement in the economy. And number 2, economic development. This is just how an economy is developing. And number 3 is economic reform. We usually hear this collocation when we're talking about the government and how they plan to make laws or changes in policy to improve the economy. Economic reform. Okay, since all of these words are so similar, I didn't want to give an example for every one, but here are a few sample sentences which can use a variety of these collocations. After years of economic hardship, the country is experiencing economic growth, an economic recovery, an economic revival, or an economic boom. After the recession or after the depression, it took 20 years for an economic upturn, an economic recovery, or an economic improvement. Or after the pandemic, many countries are experiencing economic stagnation, an economic slump, an economic downturn, or an economic slowdown. But the government is trying to increase economic activity and stimulate an economic boom. We'll see if this economic reform works. All right, well, there you have it, 40 useful words to talk about the economy. Now, make sure you don't forget to download that free PDF linked in the description below. And I'm also thinking about reviewing the answers to this worksheet in a live stream. So if you're interested in that, please let me know in the comments below so that we can plan that and work together to review this handout. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you like it and subscribe to my channel so you can keep improving your English with me. And I will see you next time. Bye.